Hey guys, I've got another fantastic guest today. Before I tell you how I found out about this gentleman, let me first introduce him. Mason Weaver is a former ex-Black Panther. Maybe he'll tell us about how he joined that group. He's the author of 5 books, been pretty busy. Let me just list them for you. It's Okay to Leave the Plantation, The New Underground Railroad, Tribalism, The Truth Between the Lies, The Rope, A New Perspective on Freedom and Success, Polishing the Diamond in the Rough, and Diamond in the Rough, exclamation point. How you doing, good sir?
I'm doing great, sir. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. So I first discovered you on Tucker Carlson. Am I allowed to say as a professor that I watch Fox News once in a while, or is that illegal?
Uh, that's your income, but not mine.
So I saw you on Tucker Carlson where you had been invited to talk about the Representative John Lewis's decision, and I think there were maybe 60 plus others who decided to boycott the inauguration. So I'll ask you about the Black Panther history in a second, but maybe you could start us off with that. What were your thoughts on that? And then we could take it from there.
You know, no one misses them. The press used that as an event to stir up some doubt. Nobody missed them. We're all glad they didn't show up. They're not part of the government. They're not part of American Patriot. They're not part of trying to build up America. The Black Caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus, and all the Black liberal leaders are for poverty. They're for debt. They're for failure. They're for bad families, horrible schools. They are administering a program that continues to keep Black people down. They're against their own people. They are self-hating politicians. Therefore, I have no respect for them. I have no tolerance for them. I find no redeeming quality to them. Therefore, when they asked me what I thought about John Lewis, my comment was really very simple. John Lewis took a beating on that Peptimus Bridge, and he got up after getting his head bashed in, and he joined the party that beat him down. He joined the party of the Klan. He joined the party of the white codes. He joined the party that instituted the bills he was fighting against. That is the codes of literacy tests for voting. He joined the abusers. And for 50 years now, he has been leading his people into debt, poverty, drugs, gangs, no marriages. He has been leading the charge for his democratic slave masters. I have no respect for him.
But tell us what you really think. No, but seriously, do you think that these guys are simply misguided and that they have noble causes,
No.
but they simply misapply their ideology? Or do you think that there is a nefarious, sinister motive that they're willfully trying to keep their own communities down?
Do you believe a drug dealer is really trying to medicate the community? Do you think a drug dealer is just simply trying to have a cheap way to bring medication? Of course, you cannot be in power for 50 years. You cannot be in charge of the greatest, the most powerful, the richest country on this planet, and your people find more poverty. You cannot do that by accident. You cannot administer a program where your schools are turning out nothing but gang members and drug dealers. No education, no going to college. Matter of fact, in most inner cities, the inner city schools get more money per pupil than the suburban schools that are wealthy. They get more money per student because of government programs, but they do not graduate kids. So you cannot do that. You're a nice, kind gentleman. You think everybody just don't know the truth. These fools know the truth, and they do not want the truth. They're getting empowered. They're getting enriched on the misery of people, which is why I called him a poverty pimp.
Yeah, I saw that. You have some very, very colorful language. That's why I thought that you and I should chat, because I've been accused of a similar use of colorful language. So we're certainly linguistic.
That's a badge of honor, brother. That's a badge of honor.
So you stated that he joined the racist party in reference to the Democratic Party. Now, most people, if you walk down the street and you ask them, tell me which of the two parties historically, the Republicans or the Democrats, is the one that has been the racist party, almost, I bet 95% of the people would say, oh, Republicans are, toothless hicks from Arkansas who sleep with their sisters, and they lynch black people. Democrats are the ones for social justice. History is not quite as simple as that. Maybe you can enlighten us about these nuances.
Oh, history is very simple. History is wide open. If you get your news from Comedy Central, you're going to be delusional. If you get your information about the world from a liberal press, you're going to be depressed. That you're correct. Most people believe the opposite of the truth. The Republican Party was founded in 1854 for the purpose of ending slavery. Their platform, the first platform, had 9 planks in it. 6 of those planks were about ending slavery. When the Republican Party swept the White House and swept both houses of Congress and swept the majority of governorship and House like we did this year, the immediate reaction from Democrats was to bolt from the Union because they knew slavery was over. And the Democratic Party has always been the party of the black codes. They're the party that went to civil war to keep their slaves. They voted 100% against freeing slaves. After the Civil War, they had a plan. Democrats always have a plan for you. And this plan kept black folks on the plantation, kept black folks poor, kept black folks dependent. And we started voting Republican, and we gained our freedom and started prospering. The Democratic Party has always been a party of disaster. And I do not understand how any black person could be a Democrat.
I could say the almost same thing regarding. So we're from Lebanon. I'm from the Middle East, but we're Lebanese Jews. And so we escaped Lebanon when the Civil War broke out, came to Canada. And so when I look at the Jewish vote in the context of U.S. politics, I think it very much mirrors the black experience in that Jews overwhelmingly and repeatedly vote Democrats, even though one could make a very clear argument, certainly under Barack Obama, that it's maybe time for them to reevaluate their voting in bloc. Is it the same sort of phenomenon?
It's exactly it. When people ask me, how can black folks continue to support liberal causes that are against their own best interests? I say, when you can figure out how Jews continue to vote for Democrats, you will have your answer. I mean, the Jewish people is the most successful culture in the history of mankind. They're the most successful. Their culture works, and it works for anybody who tries it. We should have celebrate the Jewish Day in our country to celebrate the culture,
I love you, brother.
The values. Okay, but instead, you guys have your successful culture that has made you the most successful people on this planet, and you still support the abuse of other people. I just want to know what happened to you guilty Jews. Stop being so doggone guilty for being right and start preaching what the heck works. Your values work. Preach it. Stop being guilty over it.
I'm gonna tell you a great story. I was gonna leave the story for later, but maybe it's time to mention it now since we're talking about Jewish culture. So I've recounted once or twice before the following personal story, which fits perfectly what you're saying. So at one point, after I had finished my MBA, I'd always known that I wanted to go into academia, but at one point I thought maybe it's time to kind of put on the proverbial suit after my MBA, go work for a while, and then return to do my PhD. Hold on, listen. And so one of the possibilities was for me to go maybe work with my brother who was in Southern California, who had at the time a very successful computer business. And my mother was so distraught at the possibility that I might actually not go on to do my PhD that upon hearing that I might stop, even if only temporarily after my MBA, she took me to one of the rooms to the side and she told me in all seriousness, do you want people to remember you as somebody who dropped out of school? So having an MBA was considered a dropout. I would be an illiterate fool if I stopped my education. People would laugh at me. I would be considered a failure. Now, of course, I wasn't doing my PhD for my mother, but it gives you a sense of the level of expectation that is set. Yes, so how could you not be successful when you have that kind of ecosystem that you're growing up in, right?
That Jewish mother is the key to your culture. That Jewish mother, I mean, think about it for a second. For 2,000 years, no country spoke Hebrew as their national language. For 2,000 years, no country kept the feast days or the holidays. For 2,000 years, your culture was not the dominant culture of any country on this planet. For 2,000 years, you guys resided in Europe and Asia and America. You spoke French, you spoke Russian, you spoke Italian.
Arabic.
For 2,000 years, there was no, and Arabic. And on day one, in 1948, you flew into Tel Aviv from Russia, Britain, America, South America. You got off the plane speaking Hebrew. You had your feast days still intact. You had your holidays still intact. You had your language still intact because the mother, protected by the father. You had a Jewish father willing to give his life for his wife. You had a wife willing to give her life, live her life for her children and her husband. That became a family, and no matter where you were on the planet, no matter what country you're in, you stayed together as a Jewish culture. And if black folks learn from that, if white folks learn from that, we'll all be a better people.
Now, when black leaders, such as yourself, such as Larry Elder, dare I say Bill Cosby, not that I want to tar you through that association, when he famously...
Oh, he likes women. Come on, he likes women. He likes women. All right, okay.
When he famously... Well, I don't know if you should seduce them with drugs, though, but anyways, when he famously...
You probably shouldn't.
When he famously said, hey, look, we need to empower ourselves, emulate the Jewish model, then suddenly he becomes a racist. You become a racist. You're an Uncle Tom.
Yes.
So what is the cancer by which simply asking your own people to have individual dignity, to feel empowered, becomes a form of self-hate? I mean, what is the diabolical mind cancer that's going on there?
Two things happens then. When you tell the truth to someone who wants to believe the lie, the only recourse they have is to call you a name, because the truth is like a brick to their head. And if they can call you a name, you stop discussing the truth and begin to defend yourself. You're no longer saying the truth. You be saying, I'm not a racist. I don't hate black people. You start defending yourself, and it's irrelevant. So they call you a name because what you're saying is too painful. Secondly, they're lazy. And if you go off and make it, if I go out to school, I'm around all these folks say black man can't make it, and I go off to school and open a business that becomes successful, my success proves that you're just lazy. So they have to attack. The slaves, an abused woman will fight the police to protect her man.
Yeah.
A prostitute will make money. She may have left home and she's now miserable and she's abused, but every night she makes enough money for a bus ride back home. She don't go back home.
So it's a battered wife syndrome?
Yes. That's exactly. The black community is an abusive community. Liberalism is a very abusive belief system. You have to believe. Black Lives Matter and all the protesters, listen to what they're saying. They're saying every problem I have requires white folks to do something. White people are superior to me. I must beg them or demand they take better care of me. You got black folks demonstrating, professor, you got grown folks demonstrating for a minimum wage, not maximum wage. You have adults protesting for low-income housing, not high-income housing. They believe they're slaves, so they have to attack you. When the Underground Railroad came to free the slaves to the plantation, they could not announce to everybody we're coming because half of those folks to go tell master. They only take people that want to be free. When the Jews left Egypt, some stayed. Okay, so we're going to freedom, and we're going to let those idiots who want to be slaves, to serve master, serve master. I don't care what you call me. My wife and I have a deal. Every time I'm called Uncle Tom, she gives me a kiss. So call me a name.
Uncle Tom. That way you just owe me 2 kisses.
Hey, I take notes. I got that here twice now. Okay, twice.
Look, we left Lebanon under the most dire, horrific circumstances. I mean, we were Jews who were going to be executed. My parents were kidnapped by Fatah in 1980. All sorts of nasty things happened to them. We come to Canada with nothing, yet there isn't a hint ever, despite the fact that we were true victims. Now, some idiot will post a comment saying, oh, here he goes milking his victimhood status. Of course, I'm not doing that. I'm trying to contextualize, right? So we come to Canada. My parents did not sit there and beg the Canadian government for handout. As a matter of fact, it was a dishonor to them that they would be getting the help from the welfare state. And here they are. They rebuilt their lives. They were very successful. They raised successful children. And so it really boils down to the cultural ethos, the family ethos that drives what you do, right? Yes. My wife's family are Lebanese Armenian. So her ancestors escaped Turkish genocide, right, at the turn of the 20th century. Then they came to Lebanon. Then they had to escape Lebanon. So there are multi-generations of brutality against them. And yet they come to Canada. They don't behave like victims. They become very successful. Yet some black person who is born, in a society that ultimately, of course, there is racism, but it's not institutionalized racism, will then start griping about something that happened 300 years ago. Not to diminish it, of course, slavery was horrific. But why are you a victim today for something that was done to maybe your ancestor, maybe not 300 years earlier? So how do we break these people, these folks, these...
Interesting.
How do we break them out of this victimology ethos?
It's going to take a battle. It's going to take like-minded people. You mentioned the Jews in your family. You went through all of that. You became successful, and they still hate you. They still despise you. When I grew up as a kid, I wondered, I'm a Christian, I'm wondering, why does the world hate the Jews? Why don't you hate the Germans? Why don't you hate the Russians? Why don't you hate the Japanese, what they did to the world 50, 60 years ago? I'm thinking, what has the Jews done that everyone hates them? And as a young man, I went to the Navy. I joined the Navy the same day Dr. King was murdered. And I went to the military, and I had a white racist look me in the eye. And he pushed 2,800 pounds of steel on me, trying to kill me. He stood over me to watch me die. I looked up at him as my bones were crushed against that steel wall. I looked him in the eye as he waited for me to die. The look on his face changed my life. I was done with America. I instantly became black, poor, high school dropout, and permanently disabled because it's one white guy. I hated everything white. I went out and joined other angry black men. We joined the Black Panthers. We joined the militancy. I was angry because this one white guy tried to kill me, and America repeatedly showed me they had no value for me. But I still had to raise a family, and I still had to earn a living, and I still had to leave an inheritance for my grandchildren. If I had continued to be angry and frustrated, if I continued to march and demonstrate it, he would have won. I won.
Wow.
I took advantage of my life. I took control of my life.
Was he punished? Was he charged with anything?
No, never charged. They said it was an accident. I saw him. Only he and I know it was not an accident. He did it on paper. He was a known racist on that ship.
Have you ever communicated with him subsequent to that attack? I mean, have you reached out to him? Has he reached out?
That's a good question.
And I am dying to hear the answer.
For years, his face, that look, that one face, burned in my conscience. I woke up in wet sweats thinking about him. I wanted to kill him. The reason I got out of the hospital so quickly, my body recovered so quickly, my desire was to take my hands and put it around his throat and squeeze that look off his face. I was going to spend the rest of my life in jail. I knew it. I was prepared for it. I was going to take his life. And God prevented me from ever seeing him again. Except one time the whole crew came to my hospital bed. He stood behind me because he knew. I had to first become a stronger Christian. God had to reach into my chest and give me a heart transplant, a spiritual heart transplant. I learned that I was supposed to forgive my trespassers, and that was one trespasser I really had to forgive.
Wow.
So I had to forgive him. I had to, because God forgave me. I had to then forgive him. I had to lift that burden of hatred off of me before he apologized, before he gave me affirmative action, before I got reparations. I had to forgive him of the hatred. I went to Vietnam, man. I now have a good friend of mine who was in Vietnam when I was there, my same age, and I believe he was on the other side, fighting the same city. When I forgave that guy, I was instantly healed. Professor, I was healed. Wow. The pain was gone. And then I started following the scripture when I saw my girlfriend, who I was living with, and told her she had to either change her last name or change her address. We've been married 31 years now.
Wow.
We got grandkids to make some noise in a minute around the house. God has restored the family. This is a Jewish success. The family. A man and a woman with some kids he wants to protect, and you run about other men like that. It's called a community, and you latch up yourself and you defend the culture. You and I have the same culture, the culture of success. Doesn't matter our background, our history, or our religious beliefs. We want success for our kids and grandkids.
You know, it's funny that you
If
say
we all
this.
did that,
Sorry to interrupt you. It's funny that you say this about, how the importance of our kids, because I oftentimes speak out at great personal and professional costs against the dangers of Islam. Uh, if anything, because of my personal history, but of course because of my background, my knowledge on the topic, and so on. And then oftentimes I'll get, family members, and by family members I mean my wife, telling me, why do you take on this extra burden? I mean, you live a busy life. You work 18-hour days. You have enough stress on your mind. And I usually answer her, and very much in line with what you said, I do this for my children because, I might have a short time remaining in life, 40 years, 50 years, hopefully, that I can escape what's coming. But if I don't fight for liberty, then I know what awaits my children. So I don't really fight this battle for me. I could sit quietly and I will probably not face any of the consequences that might be coming. But I speak out because I want to ensure that the environment that I escaped from in Lebanon does not replicate throughout the West, right?
that's why they have to get the man out of the house. Liberalism is anti-male. Not anti-men, but anti-male, that masculinity.
Right.
They do not want, the slave master never wants that slave to think of that female as worth dying for because he would kill master over that woman.
Right.
He took the man out. The woman became a tool. Black men are bragging about how many babies they have, not how many babies they're taking care of. Black men are bragging, they send a check. They're not there checking up. And so they want the black man out poor and taking advantage. They become, anytime you have a culture where the men are not allowed to get married, you have victims. Men become a roving band of bandits over the community because all they hunt are women. But if you got a culture of men preparing to die, this is why I love history. You had this Muslim guy come out of Africa in the 1800s, Mansa Musa. He came out with gold and slaves and camels, and he had a 30-pound gold nugget for his camel to be tied and went to Egypt and almost killed the gold market. The Europeans saw him. They saw his wealth. But they decided to go thousands of miles across the Atlantic to the Incas looking for gold instead of 500 miles down into Africa over land because he also had 250,000 troops prepared to die for him. So men, we have to talk to manhood. That beating heart of a man is a warrior. And we have given up our warriorship for sex.
It's funny
we're cool now.
Yeah, it's funny that you say this because one of the terms we were talking earlier about colorful terms. So a couple of terms that I often use is the ostrich brigade, right? These are the folks who put their head in the sand to avoid reality. But then I add to that, I call them the castrati, the castrated ostrich brigade, right? Because not only are their brains lobotomized, there's nothing between their cavity, their cranial cavity, but they also lack testicular fortitude, right? And usually when I'm attacking people for that, when I call them the castrati, I'm attacking them very much in line with what you're saying, because there is an element of a warrior standing up for principles, fighting through political correctness, irrespective of the cost that you might bear. So, the Navy SEAL is a warrior, but so is the intellectual warrior who busts through political correctness, right? So for not to speak of myself, but in academia, for example, if you were to say that, hey, here are some reasons why it is perfectly reasonable to support Donald Trump, boy, that takes courage. That maybe takes more courage than fighting 10 lions, because you are going against the unbelievably rigid echo chamber that has been built. And so I agree with you. Masculinity has been removed. We've become, in the West, a feminized society.
We apologize for being men. We apologize. We act like it's a negative trait to be men. Women cannot solve drug problems in the black community. Women cannot solve crime in the black community. I don't care how strong you think you are as a female. Pookie and Ray Ray will still be robbing and killing tomorrow until men decide no more people will die in my neighborhood. Until men decide no more females in my family be selling everybody in the corner. Until we decide that, it's not going to end. I often ask about gun control. Why don't good black men carry guns? We are 25% of the strongest military in the world, black men. We defend Afghanistan. We defend South Korea. We protect Germany. We protect Japan. So why is it we get out the military, the best trained, best motivated, and we go home and let Pookie run our kids around and Ray Ray? Why don't good black men carry guns? I don't understand this. We disarm ourselves. And let the gang members, you allow a man to get his discharge papers and permit to carry at the same time. You allow that black man to get a permit to carry when he gets discharged and issue his sidearm. It's the same gun he carried overseas, he can carry down the neighborhood. Brother, it's over. Instead, they disarm us. They disarm us.
You know, it's very interesting because if you ask a lot of these third wave feminists, right, about toxic masculinity, I hate that term, right? There's something toxic about being masculine. So from this side of their mouth, they talk about toxic masculinity, but from that side of their mouth, if you tell them privately, which type of men do you desire as your prospective mate? They don't tell you that they want the lazy, apathetic, beta, submissive male who sucks his thumb. They want exactly the type of man that from this side of their mouth, they are denigrating, right? So that's why you get a schism. That's why you get that cognitive dissonance in their head, right? They're ultimately biological beings, right? And men seek certain types of traits in women, and women seek certain types of traits in men because we're a sexually reproducing species. So it is a completely self-defeating ideology to argue against toxic masculinity. That's what women desire. They desire men who go out and change the world.
I tell women 2 things wrong with men. If you don't like men, there's 2 things wrong with men. One, you picked our daddies and you raised the sons. So that's the problem. If you don't like how men are, you breed us. And we will do anything for you. We will conquer the world to lay at your feet. We will give you what you want. The problem is that women do not know what they want. I've been married 31 years. I'm convinced.
Mason Weaver, send all your hate mail to Mason Weaver. I did not say anything.
But tell me why I'm wrong, because I keep hearing, I think that women want you to read their minds.
Right.
I'm convinced they want you to read their minds, and only if you pay attention. I told my mother-in-law when I married my wife, I will always give her what she needs. I may not always give her what she wants, but I will give her what she needs. And I will lay down my life for her and those children. My father-in-law told me after 30 years of marriage that he now recognized why God put me in her life. This is my father-in-law. He said, I was put in her life to save her life. Now, that's the purpose. I mean, what can I say now? For generations, I don't buy Nike stock. I mean, Nike shoes. I buy Nike stock. I don't have a new car, but my money's in stocks and bonds and investments, so that my great grandkids will know my name because I left them an inheritance. They will know who I am because I left them. I'm doing videos now for my great grandkids. Can you imagine what it'd be like watching your great grandfather speak? Everyone should have a series of tapes they're leaving for their kids unborn yet. That's family heritage.
It's funny that you say this because I argue, and I'm not the only one to argue this, that, one of the paths to there are 2 paths I argue to immortality. I mean, leaving out the religious element, right? One path is through reproduction, right? By having children, I am literally extending my genes, right? My children on average share half of my genes. So one path through immortality is by the children that you leave behind. But the second path is exactly what you just said, and that is the legacy that you leave behind. That's what we call mimetic propagation. Your memes, your ideas, your beliefs, the bridges that you've built, the books that you've written, the people that you've helped, all of these things could be codified as part of your legacy. So Mason Weaver will be immortal, in part because of this clip, but also because of the great works that he's done, because of the books that he's written and that people will read in 200 years. And so, I usually talk about this, and you may not like this as a strongly Christian man. I argue that, we could be immortal without having to believe in a religious narrative, simply by doing good. What do you think of that?
But not eternal.
It's okay.
Because heaven and earth one day pass away. Now, aren't you glad that Ezekiel wrote? Aren't you glad that King David wrote? That we have these passages passed down from history, That's what makes you a great nation, a great people. The heritage you have. See, we keep talking about black culture. Jews have a culture because of the battles they've gone through, the victories they've had, the defeats they've experienced, the things through life. Black folks in America do not have that legacy. We are not a culture because we're celebrating master's culture. We're celebrating what master wants us to do. Education was illegal, so education is not important to us. Marriage was not acceptable, so marriage is not important to us. We're celebrating masters. If we get back to celebrating the American culture, instead of white privilege, the American privilege, instead of Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, if we start celebrating the truth, we will develop a new culture, and it's called the culture of success. When I got out of Berkeley and my militancy, I decided that I had a choice of being rich or poor. I tried poverty. It did not work for me. It may work for some folks. It didn't work for me. I decided to become wealthy. In order to be wealthy, I had to start doing what rich people were doing. First, knowledge, not education, not my degree. I got 4 degrees. My degrees did not give me the knowledge. It was what I read and experienced. So I went and I studied and I read. I wanted to find out how money flowed. And once I learned about cash flow instead of making dough, I put myself in the middle of the cash flow. So someone on radio a few days ago asked me, who do you work for? I said, I don't have a job. I just have income. I'm too old to work. I'm too old. I go outside and play golf in my backyard. The point is, though, is that it's acceptable to everybody.
Yeah.
It's not a system that's keeping me down. It's my inactivity that keeps me down.
You know, it's funny because I was recently asked on a show to offer some, lifelong advice that I could offer. And one of the points that I made is pursue lifelong learning, right? Which fits with what you're saying. Now, of course, getting a formal education, obviously as a professor, I support formal education, but you don't have to go through formal education. You could watch YouTube clips. You could go to the library and read 1,000,000 books. There's an infinite...
Every book in your class is free in the library.
Right. You know, it's funny because I tell you, I walk into my study sometime. I'm sitting right now in my study and I've got a very, very big personal library collection. And sometimes I just come in here and I get anxious because I've got at least 200 to 300 books just in my private collection that I've yet to read. And I know that there is knowledge in those books that is not accessible to me yet. So I'm panicking at the thought of all the, I know so little of what there is to know, right? And in a sense, that's what causes you to be humble. The more you know, I mean, not to sound cliche-ish, the more you know, the more you realize how much out there isn't to know. It humbles you, right? And so when people come to me and say, Professor, what do you have as advice? I say, always learn, always learn. Whatever mode you use, learn. And that's a message of personal dignity, of personal empowerment. Larry Elder, to go back to him, another guy that I admire. I mean, of course, just an amazing guy, and I need to get him on my show. So if you've got connections with him, help a brother out.
I'll be glad to. Yes, he's out of L.A.
I know. Yeah. His story.
And you also have Jesse Peterson, a lot of us.
Right, and he's got a wonderful message. I mean, he's such a great orator. He talks about how his dad worked hard, how he instilled in him these values. He talks about father absence in the black community as being the primordial reason why the black community is down. And how can you not listen to his message and walk away empowered? I mean, so that's what amazes me about the black community in this case. Rather than looking to Mason Weaver and Larry Elder as the role models to follow, they go after, and let me now list the guys that I personally despise, and you'll tell me if I'm wrong or not. Let me just list some of these. Maybe we could break them down, each of them. Mark Lamont Hill, Michael Eric Dyson, Cornel West, and my main man, the race peddler himself, Van Jones. Go, Mr. Weaver. Go, Mr. Weaver.
Well, don't forget, they get money managing the slaves. They will lose money if slaves became free. Their job is, Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, their job is to deliver votes for the Democratic Party every election. They will not get paid if they don't do that. They're not for freedom. They're for managing your misery. That's their job. So if you want miserable, you go and you listen to Van. Van, I don't want to call by his whole name. Van is an educated, articulate, intelligent man. And his job is, he's charismatic, and he uses charisma to enslave your mind. to make you think you're a victim. And he does it so eloquently, you think he must be right. He's so smart. That's the difficult part. If you're thinking for yourself, how can any man be charismatic enough to tell you you're a female? Doesn't matter what he says. Doesn't matter how he says it. You know you're not a female. If black people believe that they were free, individually free, nothing they say would work. Right now, we are surrendering ourselves to the lewd left press. And that's why you know the name of Cornel West. You know the name because the media keeps telling you him. You will not know the name of Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton or Louis Farrakhan if the media did not want you to know the name. It's also why you very seldom hear my name. You very seldom hear Larry Elder's name. The press is only putting out their pimps for them. But we're waking up now. This last election cycle, there was a big wake up. I traveled 10,000 miles in my Winnebago riding around the South talking to black folks. There was a new mental attitude. I'm encouraged by this next year. We seem to be recognizing that we've been led like sheep. And if we wake up completely, that will destroy the Democratic Party in America.
So let me share with you some of my personal experience. Let's say on my Facebook page, my personal Facebook page, where of course I have a lot of academic friends, and the general discourse there, and I'm not engaging in hyperbole or exaggeration in saying so. The general discourse is that anybody who voted for Donald Trump is a Nazi, is a bigot, is an idiot, is an illiterate, is a guy that sleeps with his sister, is toothless, maybe he's got a tail, maybe he's got horns. I mean, the type of language that is used to demonize people with whom you disagree politically. And by the way, I'm Canadian, and therefore, in a sense, I get a bit of a pass, and I use that because I weigh in on the issue, and then I tell people, hey, I don't have a dog in this fight because I'm not voting for Trump. I'm just trying to bring some lucidity. I'm trying to bust through the lunacy of the discourse. So, so clearly you must be a racist white male for supporting Donald Trump, correct? Because there's no other possibility, right? You could only be a KKK member. So why is white man, Mr. Weaver, KKK member supporting Trump? Please explain to us.
It's amazing how that label. What happens when you sit before an authority, real or imagined? When I take your class, I'm sitting there and I'm placing you in a place of authority because you're my professor now. And if I believe what you say to me, if I believe it, I place it in my heart. And once you place that belief in your heart, it becomes true. So if another guy says that the professor is wrong, I have to defend that because it makes me look stupid. So we have listened in front of these lewd left, godless professors, these godless newspaper commentators, these people on TV, these actors that we see, these sports figures, and they're telling us that white people in the Republican Party hate you. So therefore, you put it in your heart. If I come along and say you're wrong, they have to attack me. Our job is to take the attacks. I'm a Sherman tank. I'm supposed to attract the machine gun fire. That's my job. I'm eager to fire in the machine gun fire because I'm able to speak the truth. And I go on a radio program, hostile radio program. I'm not speaking to the host. I'm speaking to his audience. Right. Those who want to think. I'm speaking to a little girl in the corner scared. I could care less about convincing this tribal chief. My job is to kick the walls in for folks to be free.
So is your feeling that this is the point, sort of the inflection point where the pendulum will start swinging, whereby more black people will start voting Republican? That something happened? Yeah, okay. That's what you're seeing. Happened. That's what you're seeing in the trenches.
The dam is cracked. It hasn't broken yet, but it is absolutely cracked. Because you go around and you talk to black folks, and they first begin to defend the status quo. Well, he's a racist. But I ask them, what will Donald Trump do to affect your kitchen table? Uber driver in Cleveland, he's riding, cussing me out about I'm going to a Trump rally. He's getting paid to take me to a Trump rally. And he's cussing me out because I'm going to a Trump rally. And I'm saying, income to you. How much, what will it do to affect the income on your table? They start thinking. Donald Trump today just signed an executive order for Keystone Pipeline. Thousands of jobs. What's gonna change the status quo and the conversation in America won't be calling him a racist and saying I'm an Uncle Tom and the union's against him. What's gonna change things is success. Once the business start making money, once they start creating jobs here, that's going to be more powerful than some guy on TV saying, don't vote Republican. People will vote their kitchen table. Today, in the black community, the kitchen table is how much welfare can I get?
Right.
But tomorrow it will be, what kind of job am I going to have tomorrow? And that's going to change the whole thing.
You know, it's amazing because I see the hysteria post the election. I actually, there was an interview that was published of mine from yesterday where I talked about, where I tried to explain this hysteria, and I call it collective Munchausen. Munchausen is a psychiatric disorder whereby you feign illness to garner sympathy to yourself, right? And so you see all these sort of ultra-leftists engaging in this type of collective Munchausen, right? Whereby they're hysteric, right? I mean, it's difficult to understand logically. Again, this is not in support or against Donald Trump. I'm looking at this as a behavioral scientist watching the phenomenon from the detached reality of being in Montreal, Canada, right? I'm not in the ecosystem of the U.S. politics, right? So you've got some, I hate these terms, a woman of color who is studying in some university.
I do too.
Right? And she'll say things like, I am so afraid to go to my university classes today because, you know, as a woman of color and there is the predator in chief who is in the White House, I'm afraid. Now, think about how embarrassing that statement is. I mean, how would that fear manifest? I mean, how would he, like, he is setting up gang rape centers all over the place where he is ushering women of color for gang rapes. Like, how does the fact that he uttered some obnoxious, admittedly, he has said things that are obnoxious, that a public
every man in America has.
Exactly.
Every man in Canada has said that.
Right.
And every man. And then 12 years old.
And then my point was, and I got some flack from a few people, but most people understood it. I said, look, if you're going to march, you know, the Women's March, fair enough. You're entitled to do that, and everybody's entitled to not like a particular politician, and I'm sure there are many things that you dislike about Trump. That's fine. But if you believe in women's rights, should you not be marching for our sisters in the Middle East who truly face a rape culture, who truly face the patriarchy in its ugliest form? Then usually they'll either keep quiet or come back to me and say, well, why should I worry about the women there? I have to change my backyard first.
Professor,
go ahead.
Professor, would you feel any value in watching a TV program with an actress in there and she's playing a part? Would you psychoanalyze her part, her character? You wouldn't, because she's playing a part.
Right.
What you're seeing on TV, they're just playing. They don't believe that crap. They're just playing a part. I'm frightened to go to school. We need a safe zone. They're just playing the part. And it gets the people who are following them, who leave them in a position of authority, who look up to them because they're movie stars, who look up to them because they're athletes. And they believe the garbage, but they don't believe it themselves. So I don't recognize how stupid they are. I recognize how diabolical they are, because they are from the great accuser. They're always accusing. You ever notice that liberals are never happy?
Right.
They're never celebratory. They never have victory. They're always victims. They're always sad. They're always in crises. And they're always politicizing everything on the planet. They're fake. They're darkness. I do not have the respect to work with them. I do not want to find common ground. The common ground is the grave. I want to lead. I want to govern. I don't want to be your friend. I don't need to have you look up to me and apologize to me. I just want you to get the heck out of my face. So I'm glad I ran for Congress, and I'm kind of happy now I didn't win, because I would have to be kind to everyone. But now I don't have to be kind. I can tell you you're crazy. I can tell you you're a liar. And you're also my enemy because you want to destroy my country.
I was going to actually ask you if there was a run for political office in your life, but apparently you've already done that. No chance of returning to it, taking another shot?
Well, you know, it's really strange. I ran for state rep in California, and I ran for U.S. Congress in California before I moved to Missouri. And I got some phone calls this last couple of weeks from folks asking me to come back to California to run again. I am fighting it because I don't think it's going to be successful. But sometimes success is not winning the election. Sometimes success is getting into the conversation. So if I ran again, it would be in California again, because I would stir attention and I'll get my message out. I don't really see any hope for California other than to slip quietly to the ocean one night. It's a lost cause.
If you do end up going to California, my only angst in life on a personal level is that I haven't been able to permanently relocate with my family to Southern California. We lived there for a few years. I was a professor at UC Irvine. I have a lot of family in Southern California. And so
I spoke there a few times.
Oh, nice. So if you ever end up running for office and you are successful, if you could maybe put us in your suitcase and take us with you, we will be some of the really good undocumented immigrants. We will be the good. We will be the good Jews who are living as undocumented.
You're gonna come and do work that Americans don't want to do.
Like being a professor.
Is that what it is? Yes. Yeah. I live in San Diego 35 years. I love Southern California, but I don't know why you want, other than the weather, why would you want to live there?
That's it.
I want a home there. Call it vacation.
You don't need
vacation home, bro. You don't want to live there.
You think so?
Those kids are they'll treat you so bad.
One possibility actually that we've been thinking about is exactly to have a second home there, because Montreal, when the weather is right, is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. But there's an expression. There's an expression in Arabic that says, "If my grandmother had balls, we would have called her my grandfather." And therefore, to say Montreal is beautiful, except the fact that you are 5 months living in hell. Life is short. So Southern California. The most perfect weather on the planet. It reminds me of Lebanon. It's the exact same weather, and so for that reason, I might have to join you in Southern California if you.
I know somebody has a nice cabin in Big Bear. They can rent you. Beautiful cabin, 10 acres, top of Big Bear.
Oh, nice.
Or buy a boat and live in Newport Beach on a boat, brother. You do not want to pay property taxes. You don't want to send your kids to school, and it's. But we're going to take over California. We're not going to let them have California. We're going to take California. We're going to take New York.
You think
I
so?
have a theory. See, I have a theory. I have a plan. We already tested the theory. The liberals only control the cities. California is a red state, except for LA and San Francisco. Illinois is a red state, except for Chicago and East St. Louis. Pennsylvania is a red state, except for Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. So what if we concentrated on those 2 cities in each state, 2 cities, 13 cities in all, and concentrate on just reaching people through the airwaves, not a program, but advertising on those inner city urban radio stations about what is going to happen to you personally, the kitchen table, what will it do to put money in your pocket? And if we get 10% of the black vote, almost every time we get 10%, we get a landslide.
Is that true?
10%. Yes, sir.
Wow.
So we don't have to have a whole lot of folks. So we just have to, but Republican fundraisers don't want to concentrate. They surrendered the black community to the Democrats. They never fight for it. But whenever we, the black conservatives, get enough power to go into the communities, I campaigned in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh myself. I drove to Birmingham. I drove to Atlanta. I drove to Fort Lauderdale. I flew to Cleveland. Everywhere I flew, by the way, we won. By the way, I'm just saying.
That sounded like Trump. That bravado sounded a bit like Trump.
I love Trump. You know what? Brag on what you're good at.
Right.
I will convince folks I'm right. We won 10%, and it's a landslide because 60% of black folks don't vote.
Is that right?
Realize that.
Wow.
60% don't vote, and also on a separate survey, 60% say they are conservative.
What is the percentage?
So we can get those.
The non-vote, say in the white community. So what's the 60% figure for the white community? What is that number?
Yeah, it's about 70% vote in the white community.
So 30%.
70% vote.
So 30% don't vote in the white community. Double that in the black community. Wow.
Yes.
What explains that?
Because white people think they have input. Black folks say, it don't matter what I do. It don't matter what I vote. I've been here for 3 generations. It don't matter. And so they sit and they wait, and their political activity is begging and rioting and protesting. That's their political activity. White folks will go vote. Black folks are complaining. Here you are in Ferguson, right where I'm living, close to Ferguson. Black people are 72% of the population in Ferguson, but you're going to riot over the police chief? You elect the police chief. You're going to riot and demonstrate at City Hall over the mayor. You control the mayor, but they don't vote. They only vote for the shysters. They won't vote for success. You have no businesses here, but you're gonna still vote for the same people.
It's a long time since I've heard the word shyster. I like it. I like it. You're bringing it back to the lexicon. So
I often say that you got to really listen to the Jewish, I don't know what you call it, the slangs, because you guys have a way of just explaining life.
You know which word I've reintroduced to the lexicon recently? Schmuck.
What's that?
Schmuck. Are you familiar with the word schmuck?
It's an old word.
Yeah, it basically means like a schmuck is like a buffoon, an idiot, right? And so oftentimes, as you might imagine, I get insulted and I get attacked a lot on social media. And so there's something very powerful, very cutting, very incisive in calling somebody, for example, a castrated schmuck. They run off to the hills. Yeah. And so verbal fluency is...
I'm going to start using that. I'm going to start using that.
But give copyright to The Godfather.
I got you, The Godfather. I like that. But we have to recognize that in this battle, and I talk about Jews a lot, but actually, when I was a Berkeley militant, I started studying black history because I was interested in slavery. And in order to study slavery, you got to study the Jewish lifestyle. So I started studying the Bible, and I started studying African history. And I saw the Jews go into slavery and out of slavery based on lifestyle things they did. So I learned a lot from them. But what I've understood now as a black man was that success, you're going to be coming against something. No one wants you to be successful. They're going to come against you. They're going to be powers that be coming down on you. When the Jews got to the Promised Land, 420 years later, the biggest, baddest dudes have the land. Why not? If God put aside the best land for you, and you're gone for 400 years, when you think the baddest dude there would have the land? So if you want success, you want that job, you want that woman, you want that lifestyle, somebody else also wants it. So we have to get off our little pity, who gonna stop me, and go and get it.
Well,
and stop worrying about who's not gonna like us.
And relating to that, the idea that everybody gets a trophy speaks against this idea, right? I mean, we are a competitive species. Yes. I mean, we are a cooperative species, yes. But we also form hierarchies, right? You and I, as you said, both want that same elite job, both compete for the same access to these beautiful women. And so it is natural in the animal kingdom in general, and certainly within Homo sapiens, to fight. Now, if you inculcate kids with the idea that there is no winning, there is no losing, we're all equal, we all get a medal, then you are not giving me, right? That time when my mother took me to the side and said, hey boy, don't you quit after your MBA, otherwise you're a loser.
That's right.
You're not teaching those kids, right? Some of us are better at soccer, and guess what? I'm going to score 5 goals against you, and you're going to suck it up, pretty boy, and that's life. Some win, some lose. And so that's what I mean by...
And you know that.
Exactly. And so...
You know that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say...
You know that, so therefore, if you know that's true, people doing it are also as intelligent as you are. They must also know the result, and they want the result. What you are arguing against, they want. They know if you give them trophy. My granddaughter is on a co-ed basketball team. She has rehearsal tonight, practice tonight. They've won every game by 30 points or more. But they're always saying, everybody's a winner. And she comes back and says, no, we won.
Right.
Everybody win that game. But the people that you're fighting, they're not stupid. Don't think your enemy is dumb. Right. They know the results of what they're preaching. You become docile, you become dependent. And they want dependency. They don't want freedom. They don't want your message. Your message is going to lead the herd away. You're cutting the gate down from the herd. Can't stand you.
Man, I'm loving you more and more by the second, Mr. Weaver. Before we wrap this up, because I could keep you here for another 6 hours. I know you're a busy man. What are some projects that you're working on currently that might not yet be public that you'd like to use this forum to promote? Go for it, sir.
Ooh.
Give me
I want to tell you about it.
All right, go. You don't want to tell me about it?
Well, I mean, do I want to tell you about it? it's going to take your audience participation. I mentioned how successful we were in getting the black vote to think. I believe that I got 13 cities around the country. I want to advertise on national urban radio on those stations to those people, directly to the people. See, they can't boycott an ad, and folks won't turn the ad off because their favorite song comes on next. And I want to advertise these 13 cities on one national program talking about personal individual responsibility. I would need advertisers, but my advertisers is going to be attacked. So what I need people to do is just buy my book. It's okay to leave the plantation, Amazon.com or CreateSpace, and that will give me revenue to buy those ads as a successful black businessman. Attack me, I'm the tank, and I will go out to these communities and I will spread the word of success. Whatever black folks think we can do, we understand this. Whatever we think we can do, we're successful. We dominate. We think we can play basketball and football and tennis and singing and dancing and pimping women and selling dope. We think we can do it. So what if we think we can have families, a successful business? What if we think we can leave an inheritance to our kids? I'm going to change the way black folks think of themselves. And then we, as a group, will change America.
Uplifting message. Public, you've got your directives from Mr. Weaver. Rise to the challenge and buy his book. Absolute pleasure speaking with you. Stay on the line. I will put also the link to your website, and hopefully they could learn more about your work. And I know that you're a motivational speaker. You do all sorts of things. Absolute pleasure and an honor to speak with you today, sir.
Thank you, sir. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Stay on the line.